Margaret and John Buchanan, an ordinary couple whose letters and surviving artefacts exemplify the make-do attitude required of pioneer settlers. John and Margaret Buchanan were from Kirkintilloch in Dunbartonshire. John actually grew up here at Hillhead, just alongside the line of the Roman-built Antonine Wall from the 2nd century, from which the town gets its name, Kirkintilloch, the fort at the head of the ridge. Like his father and his brothers and heaps of his fellow townsfolk, John became a hand-loom weaver, a trade with which Kirkintilloch was closely associated in the 19th century. These are surviving examples of the special weavers' houses that had looms set up downstairs and living accommodation up above. And this weaver's stone in nearby Lindsay recalls the lively political debates that the weavers were famous for as they sat round reading newspapers together aloud. But all of that intensely communal life went by the by in the mid-19th century, paid the price of progress, as hand-loom weavers were made redundant, with new powered mechanical looms and factories taking their place. Craftsmen, like the Buchanans, had to find something else to do. John married Margaret McCulloch in 1843. She was also from a Kirkintilloch weaving family, in her case from Dunteeblade, just to the south of Hillhead. Both were quite old to be getting married. He was in his 40s already, she was 36. Even so, as they began to have children, dreams of a better future led them to apply for passages to the new Free Church settlement in Otago. In late 1847, John, Margaret and their 2 young daughters joined John's younger brother and his family as steerage passengers on the Philip Lang to be part of the pioneer party to Dunedin. After an arduous 5-month journey, they arrived at Port Chalmers in April 1848. John now had to adapt to a host of new challenges as he made his living in the embryonic settlement, felling trees, digging drains and taking any labouring jobs he could get. Margaret and the wee girls, meanwhile, were stuck in the barracks at the foot of Bell Hill until John could build them a house of their own. It took him 18 months, trudging up the hill here to the spot in the town belt at night and when he had no work to build that house using just a few primitive tools and whatever material he could harvest from the bush. He must have often thought back longing to those cosy stone weavers' cottages at Hillhead and the support of his extended family. Here, he was on his own. His brother Thomas was forging his own path on the Tiree Plain. But he persevered, and when the 12-foot square wattle and daub cottage was finally ready in November 1849, John wrote home proudly to describe it to the family, and noting its location as a quarter of a mile from Dunedin in the bush. Margaret must have been thrilled to leave the crowded barracks on the Dunedin foreshore for a place of her own. But she too would have badly missed her home in Kirky. We know for a fact that, from family sources, she suffered badly from depression in her early years here in Dunedin. Living in a clay cottage in the dank Dunedin bush with 2 small children and another son that came along in those first years as well would have been no fun.
She's much better now. Now, we better get on with some washing.
The soundscape in the cottage display captures a sense of that, with the crying of the baby tempered by the supportive voices of Margaret's female neighbours. It is also Margaret's voice that is recalled by the singing, Burns's song, The Banks and Braes of Bonnie Doon, as we know that on occasion she used to travel with a friend out to the Tiree Plain to visit friends and relations there where they would sing for their supper to repay hospitality received. John eventually found more steady work as the beadle or minister's man at First Church. His duties there required him to ring the bell that was set up on the hill above the church morning, noon and night to sound the hours of the working day in Dunedin. It was this bell, well, not this bell, the original's actually in Toitu's collection, this is its replacement here on site, that gives the hill its name, Bell Hill. Margaret also overcame her early trials, and their home in the bush at Squatter's Gully was remembered by many as a haven of hospitality, a place where you could be assured of a friendly welcome and lots of laughter. During the gold rush of the early 1860s, Miners on their way inland are known to have left their excess baggage at the Buchanan's house, repaying them later with some gold. The Buchanans lived in the cottage until 1864, when the town belt site was reclaimed for civic purposes. They then moved to a house in this location in Great King Street. John Buchanan passed away here in 1880. Margaret died 20 years later at her daughter's home in Duntroon.